Hi, Brittany. Are you ready to go? That's okay. Um, Basically, this will probably take the entire hour because we do go through so much information from the May comprehensive because it is so much bigger than April's comprehensive too, which can be quite scary to students, especially since the two comprehensive problems put together equal 30% of your final grade. So it is a huge portion and it scares a lot of students. I have students that are really good. They're getting an A until we get to week 10. They choke, they don't do the assignments, and they barely pass, or depending how they do on the final, they do not pass the course. So it is quite big, unfortunately. But don't forget, I am here to ask questions to help as much as possible. So please take advantage of me. So basically, what we're going to do is a quick icebreaker. This will let me know basically where you're at with regards to April's comprehensive. Go over the directions, basically a continuation. Go over the chart of accounts. Um, go over about 7 transactions, I believe, that confuse students every quarter. Go over the adjusting entries. Go through the depreciation, how we calculate the depreciation to make sure we're on track. Go over the closing entries. There is one that is different than what we've normally done, so we're going to definitely go over that. Go over the financial statements and then do a quick wrap up, which includes dates for the rest of the quarter. So, but you'd be surprised at the number of students that don't ask for help. So, but please ask away. And as we're going, if you get confused on anything, definitely stop me and ask questions as well. So, okay, so it's not letting me upload my icebreaker for some reason. So, just in the chat box, answer this question. Honestly, answer the following regarding April's comprehensive problem. Have you looked at it? Have you started it? Have you completed it? Or are you completely stuck and have been meaning to email me? Or if you haven't even looked at it, you can let me that know. Started about halfway. That's good. Out of both my Accounting 1 classes, I think 2 students have actually finished it. One student has finished May's comprehensive. So out of all of my students, not many have completely finished it, which is about what I expect. So, but at least you've started it. You'd be surprised at the number of students that try to get it done on Sunday. Yes, this is in CNOW. This week's, okay, this is next week's problem. And for CNOW. Last week we went over April's, which is due this week. This week we're going over May's comprehensive, which is due next week. So that is a smart idea. It's easier than trying to flip between all the pages of CNOW. I always recommend, if you're going to use, since everything's on CNOW, I recommend having the paper copy of the textbook with you so you can look at the instructions and all the transactions there instead of trying to flip. Some students try a split screen. So it's whatever works for you. Here is the chart of accounts for May's comprehensive. It is huge. And that is because we purchase, see, we have prepaid subscriptions, we have land, we have buildings, we have a surround sound system, and a big screen TV. So we have 5 additional assets, the accumulated depreciation that goes with them, as well as the depreciation expense accounts that go with them. So it looks so much bigger than it actually is. So it's really not that bad. So in addition to the one that's due this week, we just have an additional 5 assets. So it's not that bad, I promise. Directions. The first step that you need to do for May's comprehensive, so again, this is the one that's due next week, is you're going to enter in the amounts that you have in April's post-closing trial balance. Those amounts have to go into the general ledger for May. If you don't enter in those amounts, almost everything for your permanent accounts will be incorrect for May, and that will cost you a lot of points. So that is the first step that you have to do. The rest is pretty standard. You're going to do your journal entries, the general ledger accounts, complete your trial balance, do the 10-column worksheet, do your adjusting entries on the 10-column worksheet, the ledger and the journal, do the closing entries in the journal and ledger, and then complete your financial statements. So really the only thing different or out of the ordinary for us is April's post-closing trial balance. Do you have any questions on the directions? Okay. Here are the amounts that you should have as April's post-closing trial balance. Would you like me to email you this picture so you can check it with your answers that you have on paper? Or you can screenshot it or take a picture with your phone. Okay. So I wrote down so that I will send that to you, the picture to you tonight, along with the passcode for the assignment. So you will have that. Yes. Oh, I am so sorry. I Oh, for the love of Pete. Today's a crazy day for me. Let's go back here. Okay. That's okay. It's completely my fault. It has been a very long day, but that's okay. I should know better than to schedule conferences on Mondays, but it's what fit most students' schedules. So here is the chart of accounts. We add 5 additional assets. So we have 4 additional depreciation and 4 additional depreciation expense. So, but it's pretty standard. We do have an additional revenue. So definitely make sure you pay attention to that. The first step you're going to have to do, make sure you do, is April's post-closing trial balance amounts in the ledger and just in the ledger. That's really the only thing out of the ordinary for us. Everything else is pretty standard. I will email you this picture of the post-closing trial balances along with the passcode for the assignment. So you have that to compare. Let's see. Email me if you get confused on the wording. You might want to do it when the kids are distracted or when they are in bed asleep so that you can give more attention to it. We're going to there's 7 transactions we're going to focus on that are actual transactions, not adjusting entries. We are going to go over, I believe, most of the adjusting entries just because there are ones that are quite confusing, especially the depreciation. I looked over the week 9 conference assignment, and even students that attended the conference messed up on calculating the depreciation on the after conference assignment. So I want to make sure that depreciation is understood. If you do not use the post-closing trial balance that I will send you for May's ledger, your amounts will be greatly off. Your grade will be quite, actually, since I'm not manually grading it, it's going to be pretty close to 25%. If I was manually grading it in an Excel template, I would give you 50%, but it's still not the best score. So definitely make sure you do that. Again, I'm more than happy, just like with any assignment in the quarter, I'm more than happy to go into CNOW and check your work before you submit it, just to make sure that you don't have any incorrect amounts. Because this is 30% of between the one due this week and the one we're talking about, which is due next week, it is 30% of your final grade. So it is a big portion of your grade. So let's start going over transactions. Do you have any questions before we start going over transactions? Okay. So the first transaction. In order to provide snacks for guests on a 24-hour basis, Knight signed a contract with Snack Attack. Snack Attack will install vending machines with food and drinks and pay a 10% commission on all sales. Estimated payments are made at the beginning of each month. Knight received a check for $200, which is the estimated commission on sales for May. So based on all of that extra information the book gave us, we're going to focus on this portion for this problem. Knight received a check. So what accounts would we use for that portion? Exactly. We have to remember that the textbook gives us so much more information for a lot of problems. So we just need to focus, narrow down and focus on certain aspects. So the next one, let me get the poll question opened. We paid for Maze programming on the new digital satellite system. So what would we use for the new digital satellite? Exactly. We're going to use satellite programming expense. We're going to use the expense because it's similar to your telephone bill or your gas bill. You're paying for a service. The next transaction. Knight's office manager returned $100 worth of office supplies. Knight received a $100 reduction on the account. So what would we use for a reduction on the account? Close. What exactly are we returning? Exactly, we're returning supplies. So since we're returning supplies, we're going to have to use that account. We're only going to use the office supplies expense when we are adjusting at the end of the month. Does that make sense? Okay. The next transaction, this one confuses students every quarter. We paid May's insurance premium for the new camp of $1,000. So what accounts are we going to use to show that we paid an insurance premium? Unfortunately, that is not correct. Let me tell you why. Last month in April, we paid $9,000 for insurance. Last month, we adjusted for $1,500. So we still have $7,500 that we have prepaid. So we are just going to use insurance expense that shows that we're paying insurance. We're not purchasing insurance, we're just paying the new premium. And so then we would use cash as well. So if we were purchasing additional insurance, then yes, it would be prepaid insurance and cash. But since we're paying a premium that we already have paid so much, we're just going to clunk it in with expense. Does that one make sense? It's a commonly missed. Yes, this is a continuation of April's. So I think students forget that a lot when they're doing this problem itself, because you've done so much in April, but you're doing additional in May, which is why we do both parts of the problem. Gives you a complete consecutive period. So Okay, the next transaction, or transaction number 5. Knight paid $40 for each 1-year subscription to Fishing Illustrated, Fishing Unlimited, and Fish Master. The magazines are published monthly. How much is the transaction going to be for? Commonly missed problem. Unfortunately, what you said was not quite correct. We have $40 and we are purchasing 3 different subscriptions. Each subscription is $40. So 40 times 3 is 120. So it's going to be $120. So when you do the journal, you're going to journalize it for the 120. It's going to be a debit to prepaid subscriptions and a credit to cash. That's why I stick this problem in. A lot of students see $40 and they go, oh, they give us the amount, boom, I'm done. This problem, they throw in a lot more into each transaction. So this is one that not many students actually get correct during this problem, but that's because we've never had to deal with anything like this before. The transaction tells us we paid Fishing Guides $30,000, but don't forget wages payable. So what would we use for this transaction? Okay. Unfortunately, that one's incorrect as well. It's not A, because it says don't forget wages payable. If it was a standard payment of employees, then it would be A. But again, since this is a continuation of April's, April has a $500 balance in wages payable. We have to get rid of that $500 balance. So we are going to have to use wages expense, wages payable, and cash. So your cash amount will be the full $30,000. Horrible penmanship with this thing. Your wages payable will be $500. How much will wages expense be? There you go. So that is what you're going to do for wages expense. A lot of students do the full $30,000 for wages expense and then do an additional $500 for wages payable and then increase cash. Oops. Don't do that. Make sure you use these amounts. I will actually be posting a recording of this video probably tomorrow, which shows the notes that I'm writing on the screen. And it will be available for 2 weeks. So if you're not taking notes, or I had one student take screenshots throughout the presentation. So this will be available. Okay. So, but if you need to, you missed something, you can go back and watch it later. So the last actual transaction we are going to use. The rest will be adjusting entries. So a guest became ill and was unable to stay for the entire week. A refund was issued in the amount of $1,000. What accounts will we use to show that we are refunding a customer? Exactly. A lot of students will do accounts receivable in cash, or accounts receivable and the registration fees, but it is cash. We're taking money out of our account to give to our customer. And we haven't, since they're not staying, we cannot count their entire, that $1,000 as revenue. So any questions on the transactions that we covered? Okay. Now to adjusting entries. Again, we are going to use straight line depreciation. And unfortunately, for May's comprehensive, they do not tell us any of the values like they did in April. In April's, they tell us the depreciation of the fishing boats is $1,000. No such luck for this problem. So the formulas for depreciation is in the appendix to chapter 5 if you need to look them up. But it's what we purchased it for minus what we think we can sell it for. And that's going to give us our book value. Take our book value divided by our useful life. That gives us our annual depreciation. But in the case of both of the adjusting entries, we need to know monthly depreciation. Make sure when you are completing the after conference assignment that you're giving the monthly depreciation amounts instead of annual. I will only give you partial credit if you give me the annual depreciation amount. So heads up there. So the first problem, I believe this is actually your first adjusting entry that you have to do. So the total vending commission sales were $2,300 for the month of May. A 10% commission is earned on these sales. What is 10? So my question to you is, what is 10% of 2,300? So what did we, if you think back to the beginning of our transactions, we used $200 as vending commission revenue. So how much is our adjusting entry going to be for if we should only have $230? Exactly. So your adjusting entry is only going to be for $30. A lot of students try to adjust it for the 230, or they adjust it for the 2,300. Make sure you're only adjusting for the $30. So that is one of the critical ones because that will throw everything else off as well, especially when you get to the 10-column worksheet. So now we're going back to our fishing boats. So we're told that it gives us the depreciation information from April, but then it tells us a full month's depreciation was taken on the boats in April, which we know, but then straight line depreciation is also used for the 2 boats purchased in May. And we're going to make, instead of making two separate depreciation or adjusting entries, we're going to make one covering all 12 boats. So in the textbook, it tells us again that April's was $1,000. We purchased the new boats for $9,000. They have a useful life of 5 years. There is no salvage value. So how much is our depreciation going to be for just these two boats? Or how would we calculate it? Okay. That's one of the reasons we're going over it. So we already know that our adjusting entry is going to be at least $1,000 because that's what it was last month in April. So now we need to figure out how much is the depreciation for the two boats purchased in May. So we're going to take our 9,000, divide it by 5, and that's going to give us our annual depreciation. So it's $1,800 a year. So now we need to figure out how much it is per month. Exactly. So to calculate the entire amount for May, we're going to take our 1,000 plus, that's a horrible plus sign, plus our $150. And that's going to give us our depreciation on the boats for the month of May. Exactly. So that is what we're going to enter in for the adjusting amount. Does that one make sense? That's fine. The book gives us so much more information, so it does get confusing. I am right there with you. I had to do these same problems when I took this class. So now we are adjusting our new sound system. We purchased it for $3,600. There's no salvage value, and we're using it for 5 years. So what would our depreciation be for 1 month? Exactly. The next one, the textbook throws something different at us. We purchased a big screen TV. We're given a purchase price, a salvage value, and a useful life. How much would the depreciation be for 1 month? Exactly. Okay, now we purchased a building. So what would the depreciation be for 1 month? We purchased it for $530,000. We can sell it for $50,000, and we're using it for 50 years. Exactly. So it seems like you have straight line depreciation down, which is really good. A lot of students find this part of the problem really confusing. If you have to take accounting too, we're going to throw a couple more depreciation methods at you. So, but this is the easiest one. Okay, so this one, I actually had a student give me another way to calculate this. So on April 2nd, Knight paid $9,000 for insurance during the 6-month camping season. We recorded that purchase in May's problem. In April's problem, sorry. The May's portion was used up during this month. How much is our insurance this month? Or how do you think we could calculate how much the insurance would be? There's actually a couple of ways you can get the answer for this one. Okay. My additional my thinking at the beginning was, oh, we'll just go back and look at April's adjusting entries to find out the amount. Because since it's for 6 months, we're going to adjust it for the same amount. One student calculated it a lot easier than I did by flipping pages. She took the $9,000 and divided it by 6 into 6 equal payments. And so that is going to give us our $1,500 that we used last month. So there's 2 ways. Either is correct. You could go back and look, or you could just take the 9,000 divided by 6. Either way perfectly works. Which is one reason I like the conferences, because I get students' perspective on how students would do things. So the last, no, you can definitely say go back and look. That's my initial thinking was, oh, students will just go back and look. That was my initial idea, but students' ideas work just as well. But it's whatever works for you. Okay, this one is, a lot of students miss this one as well. So go back to when we purchased $120 worth of magazine subscriptions. Now we are adjusting them for the month of May. How much would our adjusting entry be? Exactly. A lot of students will say 120 or 3 just because they have the first amount incorrect. But you are exactly correct. It is $10. Any questions as of now on the adjusting entries? Again, you can always text me or email me later with questions. It's okay. That is okay. I can completely understand that. My niece was an equestrian for several years, so I did a lot of stuff at a horse stable in a car. So, been there, done that one. So it is $10. So, but a lot of students will say 120 because they don't realize, it doesn't sink in that it's a year's worth of magazines. So they'll adjust for the full amount. That's okay. So any questions on the adjusting entries before we start wrapping up? Okay. Again, you can text me or email me anytime you have any questions. So Okay, closing entries. Everything is pretty much the same. Nothing has changed. The only difference is, let me get the pin up. You have 2 revenue accounts to close. So it'll be 1 transaction. You will have your vending commission revenue, you will have your registration fees, and then you will be crediting income summary. If you do it separately, CNOW will count you wrong. So make sure you have both revenue accounts listed together. Everything else is the same. So that is the only hitch for closing entries. Financial. Yes, you're going to debit both revenues and credit income summary. Exactly correct. So financial statements, definitely look at the demonstration problem at the end of chapter 6, pages 197 to 199 in your textbook. If you need to, it's the standard financial statements from chapter 6. Nothing new there. Any questions on financial statements or closing entries? Okay. Just the wrap up to go. Your April comprehensive is due Sunday. This comprehensive that we just went over is due the 9th of September. I will email you once we're done with the picture of the post-closing trial balance amounts as well as your passcode to do the after conference assignment. Your final begins September 10th and is due September 16th. In Canvas, if you scroll down to week, I think I put it in week 11. Yes, you should have 2 final exam reviews. There is a 2-hour final. So once you hit start, you have to complete it right then or you will run out of time. Unfortunately, I don't have the authority to change that like I did on the midterm. So for your review, definitely look at the file, the .dox, because it lists the stuff that is actually on the final. The 11.0 covers the entire course. The file is just what is actually on the exam. The exam is closed book. However, Harrison does not have a way to regulate that. So that was a student that was a question asked last week. How would Harrison know if a textbook was used? We won't. It comes down to student ethics. So take that as you will. I've sent out an email today. The assignment for this week, you actually have to go to the introduction and scroll down to reading assignment to get the chapter to read. Okay, so some students have the ability to print the entire thing off. Some students don't. And then the file for the actual assignment is in 10.2. Yeah, I think I tried that once or twice. Use the Excel file, and then it's in Excel. You're going to type in your answers, save it, upload it like you would a standard assignment in another class. I will tell you that the mastery problem and challenge problem is confusing. The challenge problem, just do your best. I don't usually count off for the challenge problem as long as you give it a try, just because it is completely confusing. So as long as you try it, you'll get points for it. The final is, I believe it is multiple choice, true, false, and short answer. But let me see how many questions it is before I forget. Oh, they changed it. It's in C now. So I don't grade that. So let me open C now real quick and see how many problems it actually is. It is 13 questions. We have multiple choice, fill in the blank, matching, you're given partial 10-column worksheets and you're asked to find out, prepare an income statement from the partial worksheet. You're going to be journalizing based on a partial worksheet. So that's basically pretty much what the entire final is. It's short answer and a lot of fill in the blank with some matching thrown in. So definitely I'm going to review what I posted as a study guide to make sure it matches the C Now version of the final. I will make myself a note to do that first thing tomorrow morning. Do you have any questions as it stands right now? Okay. Again, let me know if you come across any, and I will be more than happy to help. And that is really all I had. I'm usually pretty much online. I work from home. So usually after 5 or 6, I'm not online, but I can usually access everything from my iPad. So if you have a question, I can grab the iPad pretty quick. Yeah, I used to be, but I'm more of a early, like midday owl usually, but I'm usually up when people are on the way to work. But yeah, I have a severe chronic pain condition, so by the end of the day, my pain meds kind of have me wore out. So I'm usually asleep around 9. But if you text me later than that and I don't answer, I'll get to it first thing in the morning. So it's not a problem. I mean, if you have no questions, we are done, and I will get you the passcode and the picture for the post-closing trial balance. That way, when you get home and get the kids fed, you will have it to check your April comprehensive. Thank you. You are more than welcome. Have a good evening. You too.